Diana Dors was more than just a British answer to Marilyn Monroe. She was a force of nature who carried the weight of the UK film industry on her shoulders during a period when the world was absolutely obsessed with the blonde bombshell archetype. She was a woman who saw through the smoke and mirrors of the Hollywood studio system and developed a very sharp, very specific taste in the men she considered to be truly handsome. While she was photographed with almost every major leading man of the era, from the rugged icons of British drama to the polished superstars of the American screen, she once narrowed the list down to just 5 men who she felt possessed that rare, authentic beauty that did not disappear when the makeup came off. The first name she always brought up with a sense of genuine awe was Victor Mature, her co-star in the 1957 film The Long Haul. To Diana, he was the literal definition of a beautiful man, and she often said that seeing him in person was a completely different experience than seeing him on screen because the cameras could never quite capture the three-dimensional perfection of his features. He was a massive man with a sculpted classical look that she compared to a Greek god, but what really drew her to him was his total lack of vanity. He famously joked that he was not really an actor and that he had dozens of bad reviews to prove it, and Diana found that humility incredibly attractive. She loved that he did not walk around like he knew he was the best-looking man in the room, even though he clearly was. On the set of their film, she watched how he treated everyone from the director to the tea girl with the same level of booming, friendly respect. She remembered how he would arrive on set, often looking a bit disheveled, but still radiating a magnetic power that silenced the room. He had a way of leaning against a truck or a prop with such effortless grace that it made every other actor look like they were trying too hard. For her, Victor's handsomeness was a mix of that incredible physical presence and a personality that was gentle, funny, and entirely without an ego. She often remarked that his skin seemed to have a permanent bronze glow, and his eyes had a mischievous sparkle that suggested he was always in on the joke, which she found far more alluring than a serious, brooding leading man. Then there was the legendary Cary Grant, who Diana viewed as the gold standard of world-class sophistication. She observed him during her time in Hollywood and was fascinated by how he seemed to carry his own light wherever he went. To Diana, Cary Grant's beauty was about a sense of ageless grace. She noticed that he did not just wear a suit. He occupied it in a way that made every other man look a bit untidy and unpolished. She found him truly handsome because his attractiveness did not seem to fade with time. It only deepened as he became more seasoned and witty. She felt that he had a way of looking at a woman that made her feel like she was the center of the universe, and that level of charm was something she found far more beautiful than just a nice set of features. He represented a level of class that she, as a girl from a working-class background in Swindon, deeply admired. She once described his profile as a work of art, noting that even when he was just standing still, he had a rhythmic quality to his movements. She was struck by his legendary tan and his silver-flecked hair, but more so by the fact that he was a self-made man who had invented this Cary Grant persona out of thin air. To Diana, the fact that he had crafted his own elegance made him even more handsome because it showed a strength of character and a creative mind. She felt that his handsomeness was a mask that he wore perfectly, yet there was a kindness in his eyes that suggested he never forgot where he came from, which resonated with her own journey from a small British town to the bright lights of the cinema. Next on her list was Rock Hudson, whom she described as the perfect specimen of a man. Like many others who worked with him, Diana was struck by his towering height and his deep, resonant voice, but it was his eyes that she found truly captivating. She once said that his eyes were full of a boyish kindness that you just did not see in many of the more cynical or hardened Hollywood actors. To Diana, Rock's handsomeness was rooted in the safety and warmth he radiated. He was the kind of man who looked like he could take on the world, but would rather just sit and share a laugh with you. She valued his grounded nature and the fact that he treated his fame as a bit of a lucky accident. She often recalled the way he would lean down to speak to her, making his massive 6'5" frame feel unthreatening and accessible. She found his handsomeness to be clean, without the murky darkness that often clung to other stars of the time. He had a smile that seemed to reach his ears and a laugh that felt genuine. And to a woman who had seen the darker side of show business, that sincerity was the ultimate form of beauty. She felt that Rock was a gentle giant in every sense of the word, and she often said that his physical beauty was simply the outward manifestation of a very sweet, uncomplicated soul that refused to be corrupted by the industry. Then there was Rod Steiger, a choice that might have surprised those who only looked for traditional pretty boy features. Diana worked with him in the intense drama Across the Bridge and was blown away by his raw, masculine power. She did not find him handsome in the conventional sense, but she found his intensity and his absolute dedication to his craft to be incredibly magnetic. She described his face as having real character and depth, saying that he had a brooding quality that made it impossible to look away from him. For Diana, a man with a fire in his eyes and a story to tell was far more attractive than someone who was just another blank, perfect face on a movie poster. She respected his strength and the way he commanded every scene, finding that kind of intellectual and emotional authority to be a very deep and lasting form of handsomeness. She loved the method, intensity he brought to the set, noting that his face would transform with his emotions, becoming rugged and hard one moment and surprisingly soft the next. She often argued that true beauty needed to have a bit of an edge to it, and Steiger had that in spades. To her, his handsomeness was found in his voice and his presence, a weightiness that made him feel like a real man in a world of cardboard cutouts. She found his unpolished look, his slightly messy hair, and his concentrated gaze to be far more provocative than any tailored Hollywood star. Finally, the man who held the most special place on her list was her third husband, Alan Lake. Despite the tabloid scandals and the wild drama that often followed their relationship, Diana saw a beauty in Alan that nobody else could quite grasp. She often spoke about his poet's eyes and the vulnerability he hid behind his tough, rebellious bad boy exterior. To her, Alan was the most handsome man who ever lived because he was the only one who saw the real woman behind the Diana Dors persona. She saw him as a tragic, romantic figure, someone with a rugged, unpolished look that felt dangerous yet deeply loving. His handsomeness was tied to the intimacy they shared and the way his face would soften when they were alone away from the flashing bulbs of the paparazzi. She found his fierce loyalty and his refusal to conform to societal norms to be incredibly attractive. Even when the world judged him harshly, Diana looked at him and saw a man who was brave enough to be himself. She once said that his beauty was not something that could be captured by camera because it was tied to the way he touched her and the way he spoke her name. He was her anchor and her storm all at once. And his physical features, his wild hair and his intense, searching gaze, were for her the most beautiful things in the world.